We are once again going to be talking about Call of the Wild: The Angler today, and if you caught my video 2 days ago going over the trailer, there is a lot more information beyond what was shown in the trailer that we have access to via the Steam page and other areas where we can find out more about the game. Now, on the Steam page, one of the first things that caught my eye is that there should be single-player, multiplayer, and cross-platform multiplayer. Now, technically, when Apex Connect came out in the Hunter Call of the Wild, it said that it was going to be cross-platform, but what it meant was Steam and Epic Games, because Call of the Wild came out on the Epic Games Store. It could mean that, or it could actually mean PC with console, PlayStation with Xbox, all of that kind of stuff. I'm hoping for the latter, but anybody that comes across that, I just wanted to mention that as well, because the Hunter Call of the Wild has done the same thing in stating cross-platform. Just hopefully it's going to be what everybody kind of thinks of as cross-platform, but I also wanted to mention that to at least, I guess, have expectations in the proper area. Now, continuing along on the Steam page, the world of Call of the Wild: The Angler is filled with spectacular fishing spots and breathtaking environments, which can be explored on foot, by off-road vehicle, or boat across a vast network of waterways. Traverse the living, breathing world at your own pace, and discover winding rivers, majestic alpine peaks, turquoise-colored springs, epic hiking trails, and hidden ponds. Journey past charming outposts and soaring lookout towers as you head out for a relaxing night of fishing on the lake, or beat the sunrise for a shot at hooking that one elusive catch. A couple of things in there. Boating across the vast network of waterways is really encouraging to me. Think of Leighton Lakes and how, if you had a boat, you could travel across huge parts of the map just by that boat and never have to actually exit the water. That's the way that I'm thinking of the network of waterways and being able to maneuver around maps like that, and I think that would be really cool. But the thing that really caught my eye was the winding rivers and the turquoise-colored springs. That would indicate running water, and to me, if the Angler could replicate running water, it would be in a class of its own pretty quickly in the fishing game realm. We have no running water in Call of the Wild, and Classic has attempted it, and as I recall, struggled with that a little bit. If it's rivers and springs though, to me that shows a legitimate effort to make running water, and I think that adds a lot to the fishing experience, being able to, have the mechanics of dealing with the current, trying to have your bait and cast in the right area so that the current takes it past the fish. All that stuff is really, really encouraging to me. I really hope that it's not just going to be river-shaped, but essentially lakes and not running water. To me though, specifically stating multiple bodies of water that would have to be running water on the Steam page should mean it's going to be a thing, and that is something I'm really excited about. Now, this is probably going to be the most important part of this entire video. There are 7 confirmed species of fish via the Steam page, 2 in the writing here, largemouth bass and mountain whitefish, and 5 more in the little video below that. They are rainbow trout, mountain whitefish as mentioned before, northern pike, yellow perch, golden trout, and channel catfish. I believe I got all those right as far as the specific types like the yellow perch and the channel catfish. Feel free to correct me if I have those wrong in the comments below, but I believe those are the correct species. So then, continuing with the reading above the video of the fish, each species has its own unique behavior and traits and will require you to carefully counter their movements as you reel them in, combined with a system that realistically simulates water temperatures, depths, altitude, and more to determine where fish populations will be. Every catch becomes a lasting memory, making for, I think, a largely replayable experience, as each species of fish should be a little bit different. But the part that really got me is the system that realistically simulates the water temperatures, the depths, the altitude, all that stuff. That sounds to me like you'll actually have to go and find the good spots trip after trip, dependent on the weather, dependent on the location you're at, potentially the temperature making a difference, and it shouldn't just be finding the best spot once and then fishing that spot day after day after day. I don't mean to speak poorly about any fishing games that are out there, but I know that is the thing in some fishing games. You find that exact spot, and then you just go there time after time. I think if I'm reading this right, it should be a dynamic system where each fishing trip, each outing, should be a little bit different, and I think that makes a huge difference in being able to play the game for a long period of time, over potentially years if it lasts that long. A quick little part about the equipment: use a wide range of rods and customize them with a continuously growing selection of reels, lines, floats, hooks, lures, and bait. Obviously that's what you want to see in a fishing game. options and customizability for what you're using and how you would use that in different bodies of water. And the last thing for the Steam page, Call of the Wild theAngler will continue to grow and evolve with regularly released free and paid content, keep coming back for new fishing experiences and memorable catches. You can imagine like the Hunter Call of the Wild, updates and DLCs that add to the experience and keep you coming back maybe every couple of months or even more frequently. Now there were a couple of things on the article on PC Gamer that really caught my eye, and if you want to check out that entire article, that'll be linked in the description below. The first thing was the statement that the game is going to be a new freshwater fishing sim you can play solo or with friends. Now, the solo or with friends part we knew, but I don't think it was listed anywhere before that it was a freshwater fishing sim, and we talked about on stream on Monday the potential for, saltwater fishing or ocean fishing, and maybe that is something that could be added down the road, but at least according to this article, it's going to be, I guess, freshwater only, at least upon release. And the last thing is that it will support up to 12 players. So we know for the Hunter Call of the Wild and the Hunter Classic, the max number of players in a session is 8. I think especially for a fishing game, 12 or even more would be fine, but it's good to see they're kind of upping the max for a server. So then earlier today, EW did a live stream with the game designer for Call of the Wild theAngler, Rushy, and the first thing I wanted to look at from that live stream is their chat about the mechanics.
What mechanics will be included in the game, Rushy? So like what can people expect on launch?
Yeah, so we're going to have 2 distinct fishing techniques available to use in the open world from day one. So we'll have both bait fishing with floats and then bait spin casting for freshwater angling. So you'll have plenty of options available to you.
And like I always say, variety in games such as this is extremely important, and I can only hope these options are going to grow, but it's a great start not being pigeonholed into just one type of fishing on release. Next, I want to move to the map size and how that was referenced in the live stream.
Like how big, exactly how big are these open worlds, Rushy? Like how big is the map in the Angler?
Well, I guess we should probably introduce our reserve.
Yes.
It's called Golden Ridge Reserve, and it's going to be based in North America, and it's going to be 64 kilometers squared, just like Hunter Call of the Wild maps are, and we've crafted a playable area of 24 kilometers squared inside there. And in there you're going to have a vast network of interconnected waterways where you'll be able to explore and fish in, which is also accompanied by obviously the beautiful vistas, varied biomes, and many points of interest to discover as well.
So there were 2 things in there. The first reserve, which is going to be called Golden Ridge Reserve and based in North America. I assume that'll be the only map on release, but I'm sure that's not a guarantee. Just calling it the first reserve kind of makes me think that is what they're going for. And then the size of it, 64 square kilometers with a 24 square kilometer playable area. I can only assume that means like a fishable area and the rest could mostly otherwise be explored. It's hard to say for sure, but that's kind of how I'm reading into that. Moving on to the life of the game, I mentioned earlier about regular updates potentially for years, and this was addressed on the live stream.
We have a track record of supporting our games for years. I mean, Classic's going, I think it's 14 years now. What is Call of the Wild at? 4 or 5 years? Like how long are we planning to support the Angler? I'm guessing, with our track record, it's pretty similar.
Oh, just the same. Yeah, our plan is to support the game in the long term. We're committed to continually improving the game in close collaboration with the community, and I think it's exciting just to think about that journey ahead and where it's going to take us, and what the game's going to be like in years to come.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's awesome, and it's nice that a company has that track record of such long support to games. It's always a good investment for players.
And it is absolutely what you'd want to hear, and hopefully it can do just as well, if not better, than the previous The Hunter games that were referenced. Now this will be a big deal for some, and that is in relation to real-life fishing brands having equipment in the game.
And real-life fishing brands, I should say, are there going to be any in the game on launch?
So at launch, we'll have a good selection of fictional brands created for rods, reels, apparel, vehicles and more. However, we are very keen to investigate the possibility of adding real-world brands to the game in the long term. So what I'd like to know is from the community, you know, what brands do you want to see first? You know, let us know and we'll see what we can do.
To me, it would be really cool, of course, to get to use the equipment I use in real life, but in Call of the Wild, it's largely fictional brands, and that doesn't bother me at all. Of course, I'd like to use, say, the exact same gun I use in real life in the Hunter Call of the Wild, or the exact same fishing rods and lures and all that I use in real life for the Angler. But at the end of the day, I don't think, for me personally, it would affect the experience very much, but it did sound like they're open to it, and I don't know, I think if I could choose one, I would definitely want the real life brands in, but if it doesn't happen, I don't think it would, you know, hurt my experience. Now, another major thing is the scoring system for the fish. A lot of people in our live stream on Monday were wondering what that was going to be, and that also was addressed on EW's stream.
You know, in Call of the Wild we have, you know, your non-trophies right up to diamonds and stuff. Like, how will that be? How, you know, is that reflected in the Angler too? How will somebody know if they've caught a big fish or not?
We've got a ranking system for our fish, absolutely. So the top tier of which is diamond ranked fish. They're going to be the rarest in the reserve and often the hardest to catch. You're going to really need to scour the reserve to find where they spawn and have the right gear to catch them, and then fight hard to land the catch. So yeah, best of luck trying to get them.
I do like that you don't have to be incredibly familiar with a fish species to understand the quality of your catch. Just simply look at the metal and you know more or less if it was a good one or not. I just hope there's a detailed weight, length, more so than Call of the Wild scoring system, weight down to 100th or maybe even 1000th of a kilogram or pound, and the same thing for length. I think the metals, as I said, it'll be good for maybe those that aren't familiar with a fish species. Let's say you've never seen a largemouth bass and you get a 10-pound one, you might not think anything of it. Whereas if you get to see the metal, at least you'll have an idea based on that. I just hope there is a much more in-depth weight and length system than what we see with the trophy rating in the Hunter Call of the Wild. Earlier on in the video, we did talk about the spawning system in relation to the weather, temperatures, and altitudes, and that was something else that also got talked about.
You mentioned to me yesterday, actually, that there is a brand new system that controls the spawning behavior of the fish. Can you touch on that briefly?
Yeah, and this was really important for us to get right. So we've got a unique system which controls all the spawning behaviors of the fish, which utilizes a really good range of environmental conditions within the open world, such as water temperature, time of day, altitude, and more, to determine where and when the fish will be active in the world. So the populations of the fish are entirely dynamic and reactive to the environment. So you're going to need to factor that in as you go in search of the best fishing spots.
Awesome. So just to kind of add on to that, what I'm getting at is if you understand fishing in real life, you can probably apply those same things to the game if you come in. Is that right?
Yeah, and if anything, if you know, as an experienced angler, you're going to have a huge leg up, really, in terms of everyone else. You'll pretty much know by looking at the map and understanding where the specific type of fish will spawn. So, yeah, hopefully it all matches up with the real life experiences that you had.
And I mentioned it earlier that I thought this would be incredibly important to a replayable experience for many, many hours, and hearing that only strengthened that opinion. So on to one of the bigger questions, and that is, will there be trophy lodges?
Will players be able to display their trophies? That seems to be a very common question that keeps popping up.
We don't have let's say a specific trophy lodge or a place to put your best catches. But what we do have is that when you catch the fish, we've got some nice reward poses where you'll be holding the fish, you'll be able to hide all the hood, take some snapshots, and every single fish that you catch, of course, is recorded in your journal as well. So it's something that, if the community feedback is something you want to see, you want to be able to keep your trophies and put them in something like a lodge, like in the Hunter, maybe that's something we can look at in the future. But there'll be ample ways for you to be able to capture a good screenshot, though.
While I do kind of think it would be neat, I've personally never seen a trophy room of fish. Animals and fish, sure, but never all fish. And I've never had a fish mounted, but I do have lots of trophy shots of fish I've caught over the years, so I don't think I have an issue with this. The journal being kept, in theory, could allow for retroactively taxidermizing fish trophies if a lodge released, or even adding those fish to an aquarium. That was something that was talked about on stream a lot. maybe an aquarium to have them alive in your lodge or wherever you would keep them, as it was pretty clear they were big on catch and release and ethics. Maybe that's a way around that to kind of have both. Now, I also mentioned crossplay earlier from the Steam page and being unsure about what that meant. Fortunately, that was cleared up.
But can you just run us through the crossplay and release date scenarios again?
Yep, so I'll start with the release date again then. So coming later this year to PC, and on PC you'll have a choice of Steam, the Microsoft Store, and Epic Games. Consoles will come afterwards. Again, we can't say exactly when the consoles, how far after the PC launch, but as soon as we can, and we will give you a date. And of course, crossplay will be available across PC day one. And when we introduce consoles, you will be able to play between consoles and PC as well. So the community are always going to be one whole playing together.
Hearing that makes it quite possibly the biggest revelation in the whole stream for me. Being able to play with friends regardless of platform makes the Angler so much more appealing just from the get-go. Another pretty common question was fly fishing, so I wanted to include that as well.
I mean, like, I'm just going to address it again because it's the elephant in the room. I see a lot of requests for fly fishing. Again, it's not confirmed, but, we're listening to you guys, and if it's a strongly requested feature, you never know your luck, basically.
And really, I can only hope and assume we'll see it eventually, as I think it's going to continue to be highly requested, but at least on launch, it doesn't look like that's going to be a part of it. Another pretty common question was in regards to the potential to see saltwater fishing added to the game.
This is the first map as well, guys, so I see the saltwater questions too. You never know, right? I mean, I think we haven't limited ourselves. We've created a fishing game. It's called The Angler. You never know what the future holds for it, really.
Yeah.
So
we haven't said no to anything yet. Yeah. Obviously, if our first reserve is freshwater fishing, but again, if that's what everybody wants, and if it's good for the game, then obviously we'll consider it and we'll talk with you guys and try and see what we can do in the future.
It really was great to have this stream and have a lot of those questions addressed, as I mentioned this earlier as well, and it's good to hear that they haven't committed strictly to freshwater fishing, so maybe that is a thing that we could see down the road. The idea of potentially seeing rare fish in the Angler is pretty appealing to me, and that was another question that actually got brought up during the live stream.
I see actually rare fish popping up a lot, Rushy. Is that something that maybe one day, like Call of the Wild has albinos and stuff like that, is something you might consider?
That is something we are talking about. It is something I know a lot of anglers, really want to catch that legendary fish or something along those lines in the waters that you may have heard rumors or stories about. That's not something that's in the game for launch, but it's a cool idea, and it's something that obviously I think it would be a great addition if we can.
And once again, it adds to the potential replayability of the game, coming back time after time in search of rares, and I certainly hope to see this added. It sounded like that was something they were really strongly considering. And another thing that I think is very important for replayability is customization, and more specifically, character customization.
Multiplayer and everything like that, right? Everybody needs to look unique, I think, in terms of customization. So what can we do in the Angler?
Well, you've got a full range of customization tools, which is great. So you're going to be able to visit the shopkeeper, browse a broad selection of apparel and gear. You're going to be able to purchase everything from boots to wellies, gloves to sunglasses, shorts, t-shirts, jackets, hats, and more, all to kind of customize your character and look unique. We'll try and reserve some special ones for you, Matt, right?
Yeah, yes, please.
and then gear-wise, we'll have everything from spinning, bait casting, match rods, a selection of reels, lines, lures, hooks, baits, floats, and more that you're going to be able to tailor your tackle to catch those diamond rank fish.
This sounds much closer to Classic, where you have nearly endless options for your individual character, and to me that's important, especially for a game with trophy shots. And I wanted to throw this in there because I know there are going to be some people that think that the Angler is going to cut into the development of the Hunter Call of the Wild, and that was one of the things they talked about on stream.
Does the release of Call of the Wild the Angler mean less resources for Call of the Wild? I know there's been a little bit of murmur about that, so good to address that one.
No, I mean, that's the first thing. No, it hasn't affected the Hunter at all. The Angler has largely been developed by a brand new team, and it hasn't impacted the development of the Hunter. That game continues to grow, and it's extremely important to Expansive Worlds and Avalanche Studios Group, so no resources taken away there. And additionally, as the teams are all part of Expansive Worlds, we've really been able to share knowledge and experience with each other, and hopefully that's going to create, you know, a better fishing experience with the support.
And it's good to hear the reassurance, but I think it's safe to say the two games are just that, two separate games, and I can only hope they can actually help each other grow, as both are Expansive Worlds games. And on that note, that is finally going to do it for this video. A lot of information has come out about the Angler in the past couple of days, and I wanted to kind of compile that all into one space. And honestly, as I've gone through it and seen more and more, heard more and more from the live stream, I really cannot wait to see this game and see what it becomes down the road, and apparently we'll get to see it later this year. But anyway, that is going to do it for this video, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.